Welcome, friends of the show. We are back with another episode of the Ferris Wheel Serious Rock Talk podcast.
Ooh, all right.
A big thanks for your emails, suggestions, and your support on our social media platforms. Continue to email us at seriousrocktalk@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Listen to a new show every week. Just tune in each Wednesday evening, 7 p.m. New York City time on Cap City Beats, located at www.capcitybeats.ca. Okay, buckle up for some serious rock talk. And to the left of me, a man who co-wrote songs with Tony Orlando.
And Dawn. Tie a yellow... Dr. Ian Clark.
And the man who argues with people thinking that urinating on flowers provides nutrients.
Stephen Wheeler, and I stand by it.
Hey, I agree with you. That's a daily thing.
It's not so much that it chases the squirrels away.
And yes, it does. Actually, it does. And also, hot sauce works if you have a problem with chipmunks going in your garden. Hot sauce around the garden.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
What a pointer.
Last year, we bought a ton of it, and we still have some, so it's great.
You know, poor chipmunks, hot going in, hot coming out.
So here we go today. So what we're doing today, ladies and gents, we're doing the golden era of rap and hip hop, and I extended it by 4 years. So I went from 1980 to 1992.
I
That's
completely
interesting. 80, okay, good 12 years.
Just because I thought there was some artists in there that kind of deserve a little bit of respect and a little bit of love.
Yeah.
And I think without them, things just wouldn't have gone. It wouldn't have gone to what it is today.
Right.
But,
completely agree.
And it kind of stops a little bit after, I'd say, 2004.
It becomes something else.
It does.
Yeah, it morphs into something.
Well, it becomes pop culture.
It does. But here we are, the golden era of rap.
Okay.
Between 1980 to 1989, that was the most iconic time for rap and hip-hop music. Personally, like I said, I've extended it to 1992. So for Kennedy's golden era of rap, we are going from 1980 to 1992, and here's why. Let's kick off with the month of May 2022, which is now. What better way to celebrate this month? Exactly on May 10th, 2022, one of the godfathers, in my opinion, of old school rap and hip-hop, known as Marvin Young, and to all his local loyal fans, known as Young MC, he just turned 55.
Wow.
Now, Run DMC did this first. They're the pioneers in my view. So what's happening with Marvin? I'm sure he's okay with me saying Run DMC is ahead of him. This actually marks a golden milestone, not only for his birthright, but for his music, as has lived on since 1989 when he released his first album titled Stone Cold Rhyming, which was released on Delicious Vinyl and was later reissued by Rhino Records. So apparently Ian, there was some legal issues.
Well, thank God for Rhino. Basically, half the stuff I love in the world, from the Monkees up, are on Rhino. I don't know how. Rhino's a godsend.
Yeah. So this album has been a staple until this day. He still has the fastest rhyme, which has not been done since the 1980s and early 90s, which again proves the point that the golden era timeline for rap and hip-hop is 1980 to 1992. As a product of the 80s and growing up in the 90s, I was fortunate enough to enjoy and appreciate the changes rap and hip-hop have been through. The golden era has taught us that music evolves with time, fashion, style, cultural, social, and political events. These moments have a huge influence and impact for young artists who are emerging into their own style. It also engages them to learn and write about what they have felt, experienced, participated, or witnessed in a poetic way to express their words and music on a platform that reaches their audience. Here's why I extended the era to 1992. We cannot forget the evolving times of rap that was an extension of the 80s. Ice Cube was one of the original members of NWA in the 80s. Things changed, and especially the early 90s, he went solo, writing hit song after hit song, and lots of his hidden messages were directed to his previous fallout with the group and management team that was promoting them. Some may say he was angry, others will say it was poetic justice. Who knows?
Didn't he change his name to Ice-T for a while?
No.
I'm kidding.
That's a different guy. In the era of 1990 to 1992, we got to know acts like Vanilla Ice, House of Pain, Heavy D and the Boys, Fushnikins, Del the Funky Homo Sapien, who is actually Ice Cube's first cousin, Canada's first reggae hip hop artist known as Snow, Even Maestro Fresh West was dominating the early 90s. Night by Nature taught us what OPP stood for, and we cannot forget the evolution of the Beastie Boys.
Yep.
Because they've
You
changed
like them.
it. Oh, I love the Beastie Boys. So, before hip-hop was all about women, drugs, and money, it was about street cred, pride, rhymes, breakdancing, style, and respect. Being a b-boy male, or bad boy, who engages in the pursuit of hip-hop culture or adopts its styles, listen to Cool DJ Red Alert. Every weekend, waiting for the hottest tracks to drop was everything to a significant number of urban American kids during this time. For those who do not know who Cool DJ Red Alert is, he rose to fame on WRKS 98.7 KISS FM in New York City and is recognized as one of the founding fathers of hip-hop music and culture, who till this day has a weekly radio show on WBLS 107.5 from Monday to Saturday at 6 p.m. and I'm almost positive Ian tunes into that one.
Wow. I record on a timer.
The 1980 was the most important decade in music, not just because of the pop stars making hit records, but because of rap music's injection into the musical bloodstream.
Which really needed it.
This era has carried over into the early 90s, and by mid-1997, in my opinion, rap music had reached an all-time high with new emerging artists like Jay-Z, who was actually produced by Kanye West, for those of you that would like some little bit of trivia. So Kanye wasn't always that wacky once in a while, you know, he did have some brains. I'm sure he still does. Which then started another evolution. Vanilla Ice said, rap and hip-hop stops in 2004, as this is the lost generation. He has a point, as there were 5 pillars back in the day, which were DJs, b-boys, MCs, breakdancers, and graffiti artists. Before there was streaming services like Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, and the iPod, which is now obsolete, kids of all kinds during that generation used to sit with suitcase-sized boomboxes, ready to jam to the rhymes of Run DMC, LL Cool J, Sugar Hill Gang, Tone Loc, Public Enemy, KRS-One, Ice-T, Young MC, The Beastie Boys, Belle Biv DeVoe, and NWA. Fast forward to the later generation, we had a Walkman for peaceful listening.
Thank God.
Today's generation. Oh, the Walkman was fun. That's obsolete too now.
Actually, Sony brought back a few of them, but they're not cassette based. They're basically an MP3 player, but they look like the Walkman.
I might look into that. No, sorry.
When I'm outside, I want to hear what's around me, man.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to hear the bullet coming.
Like, remember those earphones that they would just kind of dig in? It just was not comfortable.
No, the first ones were that orange spongy thing on
Yeah,
your ears.
that's
Yeah,
right.
but then after they got a little technical.
Yeah, I didn't like those.
So, today's generation has so many different styles of dance, forms known as the whip, the Dougie, even the floss. Back in the 80s, there were youths breakdancing on cardboard sets. People were using street corners in New York City, creating their own styles. Walking the streets of the South Bronx in 1983, you'd likely see subway cars covered in graffiti, the illegal art of the streets. Instead of standing behind a turntable where the computer does all the work, DJs would cut and scratch vinyl records from their mom's basement. Now, children out there, it doesn't mean that they're actually cutting the record physically and scratching it physically. It is a art form of music.
It ruins the stylist. Don't do it.
Yes. In the late 70s, young men all over the 5 boroughs of New York, especially the Bronx, dug into record crates using turntables to create percussive breaks and extend the most popular songs at that time. DJs became a force of the wheels of steel by picking up Jamaican style of toasting, improvised talking or chanting, usually in a monotone melody over a rhythm or beat. Improved sampling technology and drum machines were adopted to create new beats over these records. Amateur MCs became rappers, and the art of hip-hop exploded. Freestyle rapping became popular in the streets and at parties. Famous hip-hop artist Kool Moe Dee compared freestyle rappers to jazz soloists. And why not? Kool Moe Dee was a great freestyle rapper in his day, and for good reason. It takes skill to roll some devastating rhymes of the tongue with virtually no prep time. Diss tracks were famous rap battles that went on during the 1980s. Like what Eminem's character B-Rabbit in the 2002 movie 8 Mile, there was a rap battle with Anthony Mackay's character Papa Doc, where they dissed one another, made fun of who, things that they lost, things that they had. Oh, he used to live in his mom's basement. He actually wears khakis on Sundays, goes to church, things like that. So, a quote here.
Wear brown socks and their sandals.
That's right. Don't you dare wear brown socks with sandals. But here's actually a good quote, and it's from a Bethpage High School computer science teacher by the name of Mr. Zabel. A lot of 1980s hip-hop sounds goofy today, but it was like opening up a window on lives no one was seeing. Before it became gritty and violent, there was some very smart, very tight verse that is definitely worth revisiting. He quotes, "Listen to artists and groups like Public Enemy, Tone Loc, Young MC, De La Soul, Run DMC, Kool Moe Dee, Sugar Hill Gang, and the Boogie Down Productions, and you will see." Mr. Zabel says, "My favorite hip-hop album of all time was The Blueprint of Hip Hop by KRS-One, Boogie Down Productions. It was an album-length lesson that made me stop and think about the value of rap." This leads us to where it all began with the true rap hip-hop. In 1970, hip-hop first appears in the Bronx. In 1979, the Sugar Hill Gang came onto the scene with its 15-minute of straight-up rhymes from Wonder Mike, Big Bank Hank, and Master G. Their 1979 hit, Rapper's Delight. That was the first rap song to break through and become a worldwide hit. Now, Ian, you said in the 70s, everything was delight when they started doing
Yeah,
this.
they were, but I do remember that coming out, and I thought it was great. It was out of left field, that particular, Rapper's Delight. No one knew what it was. It was brand new. It's kind of exciting. Now we're used to all this stuff, right? But it's like hearing the Beatles for the first time or something. Wow, what was that?
Plus, they didn't look anything like every other group on the market.
They're very clean cut.
Clean cut, and there's no instrumentation to speak of. Like, we used to prog rock something, so these guys are just talking. It's like poetry, like the 1950s came back with Jack Kerouac or something. It was bizarre hearing it.
Well, this is also their song alone. This opened the door for artists like Africa Bambaataa, Grandmaster Flash and Furious 5, and Curtis Blow in the early 1980s. Grandmaster Flash had one of the best lines in the song. The message was the epitome of life on the street at the time. The hard but truthful chorus line of "It's a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep going under." Till this day, it's one of the greatest lines.
That's a famous line. I know that line. Yeah.
I didn't know about it until I started doing research.
Yeah, that's famous. It was on T-shirts and stuff. Because it's of the kind of impoverished, fighting back against injustice. Yeah.
It's like a Churchillian way of.
Yeah, he did a good job on that one. Now and then you got a great line in rap that stuck around.
Welcome to Clark Comments. Shut up and buckle up as the good doctor kicks out the jams and offers a selection of questionable, disturbed opinions that are somehow related to popular music.
Okay, when people get into Beatles trivia, they often jabber about subjects like, Pete Best, the guy that got canned because he wasn't a good drummer, or was better looking than McCartney, or whatever you care to believe.
But he was better looking than McCartney.
Yeah, actually he was.
Not gonna lie.
Well, didn't you date him once or something?
No, my mom actually.
It was interesting. But a few people talk about the genuine fifth Beatle, Stuart Sutcliffe, an original member when they were actually the Fab Five. Stuart Sutcliffe, 1940 to 1962.
Very young, 22
Very
years
young,
of age.
22.
He had what, cancer? Brain cancer?
The aneurysm. Almost immediately after joining Lennon, McCartney, Harrison, Stuart Sutcliffe proved to be a valuable addition to the band, which at the time was still unsure of its name. He came up with Beatles, B-E-E, Beatles, after Buddy Holly's Crickets, and John turned it to B-E-A-T, punning on the world. So, yeah, kind of like Brian Jones, he gave them their name. He wasn't that musically gifted, pound for pound, but it's even been said that he gave them their image. He looked a lot like James Dean. If you look at the photographs, he could have been James Dean's brother. It's kind of cool. He began playing gigs with them in Hamburg, and that's where he met his fiancée, a woman named Astrid Kircher. He recorded.
Didn't she kind of look like Twiggy?
Yeah,
like the German version of Twiggy.
Yeah, she was short and
Why do I
cute.
know that name, Twiggy?
Major model in the 60s.
Twiggy played guitar. No,
Ziggy played guitar with Twiggy.
jamming good.
Yeah, and that's where he met Klaus Wurman, of course, who played with John Lennon, great bass player, and he designed some of the Beatles album covers, Klaus Wurman. In fact, if you go onto YouTube, you can get here. I never knew this until I did my research. A recording of Stuart Sutcliffe singing "Love Me Tender." It's great. It survived and made it through from 1961 or whatever it was, 62. He had a pretty good voice. He does a nice version of it. Years later, after Sutcliffe died, they're talking to George Harrison about him, and Harrison said, quote, "He wasn't really a very good musician. In fact, he wasn't a musician at all until we talked him into buying a bass. He picked up a few things and he practiced a bit. It was a bit ropey, but it didn't matter at the time because he looked so cool." And he did look cool. But he wasn't really into rock. You're a member of the Beatles and you're not really interested in continuing with them. So he quit. He wasn't canned, didn't get the best treatment, so to speak. He quit, and he wanted to study visual arts, and he stayed in Germany with the girl he was engaged to. At one point, at this point, but 1961, he started to get these bad headaches. And because he was a young guy and stuff, he kind of fluffed it off. He didn't do much about it. And then April of 62, he died in an ambulance from a rupture. On his way to the hospital, he died of a ruptured aneurysm. And to this day, his sister, Pauline, who's also on YouTube, she's had like the Stuart Sutcliffe Foundation, thinks that the hemorrhage came from a fight he got into with John Lennon. But there's nothing to really back this up. Sure, Lennon was a kind of a violent guy, but I just think that she's pulling at straws on that.
Normally he said he wasn't a jealous guy.
That's good.
I didn't mean to make you know.
So it's clear they missed him. I mean, he's on the cover of Sgt. Pepper. You can find him there. So people always talk about George Martin, the producer, as the fifth Beatle. Well, the fifth Beatle really was a guy. And he's buried in Liverpool, and there's tombstones there. And if you're interested in Beatles trivia, be sure to look him up, as he did contribute. You could say no Stuart Sutcliffe, no Beatles, no Brian Jones, no Stones. But especially the young groups, may not know it. Anyway, look him up. This is Ian Clark, and you have been enjoying my dulcet tones as I inform you on the most precious of topics. Have a good evening, and always keep a full glass of wine. Good night.
Nice.
I love it.
Small question. Didn't the girlfriend of Stuart,
Astrid?
wasn't she the almost non-official photographer of
Yeah.
the group at one point? Like all the images
I
that
know.
we have from the early 60s?
I know. She's totally, let's face it, locked in. I mean, she was just, her boyfriend happened to belong to the Beatles, and so she photographed them and did well. And her boyfriend before Stuart, friend maybe, Klaus Wurman, just made this incredible life for himself because he was in the bar at the same time. And he spoke English, and he befriended them. And they liked his haircut, so they copied his hair. Like, all this stuff, it's just, you can't plan that.
There's a lot of interesting trivia regarding the Beatles, and I'll bring up Johnny Hutchison for... No, this is a true story.
Don't do that when I'm actually taking a drink of coffee.
And you know this is true. Pete Best obviously was replaced by Ringo. And then Ringo apparently got ill. They reached out to Johnny Hutchison.
Right.
And Paul was seriously thinking. It's funny how these guys are still friends. Like, in other words, you want to kind of cut me out. Because they wanted to give the gig to Hutchison. And Hutchison refused it because he thought these guys are too egocentric.
Oh, well.
You know?
Good reflex in a way.
Yeah, but still.
You know, but was Hutchison a better drummer than Ringo? I'd have to probably say yes.
He could be from a technical standpoint, but Ringo was the right drummer for the Beatles.
Yes, because he went with the flow.
We went with the
Exactly.
flow, and he was the clown, and he was the Keith Moon.
Exactly.
And a band needs that.
Because let's face it, let's say you put a Neil Peart in the
Yeah.
Beatles, that doesn't work at all.
That'd be horrible.
Well, Neil Peart is and you know, as myself taking drum lessons and my drum teacher, and also talking to guys that have been doing drums longer than me, they said Neil Peart is only good for one thing: prog. That's it. You can't tell Neil Peart to go do Zeppelin songs. You can't tell Neil Peart to do anything for like Mellencamp.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, the man passed away. Sad. Was he a great drummer? Absolutely. Was he the best? I'll debate that to anybody. And actually on a hip hop show, they're going to be on my side right now because I'm going on this one. Right? So we'll get that to our organic show. We'll yammer. So back to hip hop, the golden era. In other historical moments in the era, Curtis Blow was the first rapper to be signed to a major record label from 1979 to 1990 and released 11 studio albums. The era of the 1980s and early 1990s, hip-hop had some of the best lyricists of their time. Some of my favorites are Chuck D and Public Enemy, Run DMC, Slick Rick, Ice Cube, Eazy-E, Maestro Fresh West, Snow, Vanilla Ice, Cypress Hill, Beastie Boys, and Heavy D and the Boys. This was truly, in my opinion, the golden era of hip hop, and it can never be duplicated again.
Okay, I got some trivia for you right now. Then see if you can get this lyric. She did the wild thing on my leg.
Yeah, Tone Loc.
There you go.
And I'll get to Tone Loc in a second,
All right.
and you'll see the collaboration that he did. In 1984, hip-hop flowed into the cultural mainstream for the first time. One of the greatest rap groups of all time would emerge. From the parks of Hollis, Queens, this would change the style and sound of hip-hop forever. Joseph Simmons, Daryl McDaniels, no relation to Elias,
Okay.
and Jason Mizell became known as Run DMC. So Joseph Run Simmons, who got his nickname from running his mouth so much, is considered one of the greatest MCs of all time. He was dubbed DMC for the letters in his name or for being a devastating mic controller. Daryl McDaniels' distinctive voice, unforgettable gazelle glasses, and hard rhymes complemented Run completely. Jason Mizell, known as DJ Jam Master J, brought his own style to the hip-hop game, controlling the beats, cuts, and scratches behind the rhymes. Again, kids, he wasn't scratching stuff literally, okay? I have to emphasize that. I do.
You gotta save a turntable.
I do. Growing up in the 80s and listening to Run DMC, they are not only famous for their lyrics, but they're also the epitome of the 80s hip-hop with their unique style. All three members wore thick bling and gold chains around their necks while rapping with their signature shell-toe Adidas sneakers, velour warm-up suits, funky hats, and well-groomed appearance. Run DMC reigned from 84 to 93, releasing 6 legendary albums. It's not a bad run.
Considering the age,
Because
how
you
long
always
were
said
they-
10 years, just shy of 10 years.
Yeah, usually it's not quite an album a year for quality.
And it's
Exactly,
6.
yeah.
And it's
I mean,
6
Neil
good
Young-
albums.
Neil Young
They are
has
good
said-
albums, yeah. So, Run DMC, here we go again. Run DMC revived the career of Aerosmith with the rendition of Walk This Way.
Hey, diddle diddle, when I play my fiddle, yeah.
You agree?
Totally. I mean, Aerosmith was in the toilet. They were the Toxic Twins. They couldn't, cash a check, and they just, we were talking about this earlier. They happened to Run DMC approached them, and they happened to luck into this song, "Walk This Way" from early 70s. That was written like a rap song. It just worked, and it's a great plus. It's a MTV. It's a great video.
That's it.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
so the MTV video was an instant sensation.
Yeah, it was.
This opened up the barrier for cross-collaboration of rap, hip-hop, and classic rock. More than any other hip-hop group, Run DMC are responsible for the sound and style of the music. As the first hardcore rap outfit, the trio set sound and style for the next decade of rap. With their spare beats and excursions into heavy metal samples, the trio were tougher and more menacing than their predecessors Grandmaster Flash and Houdini. In the process, they opened the door for both the politicized rap of Public Enemy and Boogie Down Productions, as well as hedonistic gangster fantasies of NWA. Run DMC is by far the major pioneer in all 80s hip-hop until this day. Even new hip-hop artists today have to look up to them because they were the mecca in the 1980s and they maintained the old school hip-hop. They made it popular all the way through the 1990s. And just like the Beatles, Stones, and Led Zeppelin influenced rock, Run DMC influenced rap and hip-hop. NWA was the first major group to incorporate themes of real-life events with vulgar language in their music. They released a hit album, Straight Outta Compton, in 1988. Let me tell you, this album, for some, it turned heads. What people fail to realize is that the album was basically 5 guys reporting news that was happening in their neighborhood of Compton, that the media failed to provide, acknowledge, or bring attention to. Basically, this was their way to express and have their message heard, and reminded everyone, hey, don't forget about us. This happens here too. The group was later credited with pioneering the growing art of gangster rap. NWA referred to their music as reality rap. Their music affected urban America, that their album Straight Outta Compton was one of the first albums, along with Two Live Crew's As Nasty As I Wanna Be, to be included the parental advisory label on the record. During that time, the label read, warning, moderate impact, coarse language, and themes. In my opinion, this was the start of a pop culture and musical historical moment in time. If you listen to this music with an open mind and outward thinking, the message is relative and it speaks volumes.
Yeah, but their name, hang on, their name had that word that everyone is uncomfortable with.
Exactly.
Attitude.
Yes, the attitude is very uncomfortable. This was a form of expression, and nothing was more powerful in the late 80s, early 90s than rap hip-hop, as they knew how to deliver the message on many things. From 1984 to 1992, the most famous music came from Run DMC, LL Cool J, Public Enemy, Eric B. and Rakim, Ice Cube, NWA, House of Pain, Vanilla Ice, Beastie Boys, Boogie Down Productions, Slick Rick, Ice-T, and many more. Rap in the 1980s was not about money, sex, women, or drugs like it is today. It's about growing up in the streets, real life events, and your style. Without the artists of this time, there would be no Biggie Smalls, no Tupac, no Jay-Z, and no Drake. And this is my golden era of rap from 1980 to 1992.
Thank you very much. That's quite informative.
Yeah. So, with that being said, I still hear some.
Are you into a corner too?
I'm into a corner.
You talked yourself into a corner.
I really did talk myself into a corner.
That was very interesting stuff. No, rap is constantly changing, and you're right. It's like rock and roll, classic rock, the new wave, prog. It's been around long enough where the connoisseurs such as yourself can find what they enjoy. It doesn't have to be the new stuff all the time. It can be something from '92. What? You can, that's like listening to the Beatles of 1968. It's long enough, right? Ralph, 79 roughly.
40 to 30
You
years.
can go back. It's okay. It doesn't have to be super current.
It's true. And you also said a point with when we're talking about different music styles, because there's a 5-year gap between you and my dad.
Yeah.
And you said, of course, it's huge in music.
Big in music, yeah.
And in rap and hip hop, it shows that example that year after year things change.
Things got weird near the end.
It did, and there's a lot of political events, cultural movements that happen. You got to understand it catered to urban America, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people. My father at one point in time had confiscated my NWA albums because of the language and the themes. But again, as I quoted, if you listen to something with an open mind, and that's what my dad did. He sat down, I don't know where the hell he went and listened to it, but he went and listened to it. I can't believe he did listen to it. And he gave it back to me, and he says, listen, he goes, nah, I understand what it is. He understood. So it wasn't...
But then he said, I want you to the house.
But he didn't confiscate my MC Hammer tape, though. He let me have that one.
Don't hurt him, Hammer.
Yeah, please, Hammer, don't hurt him.
Don't hurt him. Just dance in your parachute pants.
Welcome to Kennedy's Corner. Following the advice of a behavioral psychologist, Ferris Kennedy has created a forum to express his nightmares, his terror, and his love of rock music. Dr. Clark and medicated Wheeler help with his therapy by answering questions, or just acting like they're interested.
It's a special Kennedy's Corner.
Okay.
So for all the listeners of the show, obviously my questions are directed more to classic rock. Today I figured I would do something special regarding hip-hop, and I figured why not, let's pay a small tribute to Marvin Young, better known as Young MC.
Okay.
So he was born May 10th, 1967, and better known to his fans as Young MC. He is a British-born American rapper, singer, and actor, and he is known for his 1989 hits Bust a Move and Principal's Office, and his debut album is Stone Cold Rhyming, which found international acclaim.
Yeah.
Until this day, that album is still a
Yeah,
popular culture.
everybody knows that album. Yeah.
All right. So Marvin grew up in the middle class and earned a degree in economics from from USC, where he met Michael Ross and Matt Dyke, co-founders of the fledgling Delicious vinyl rap label. He made his debut as Young MC on that single, I'll Let Him Know. In 1989, Young collaborated with Tone Loc on Wild Thing, the first top 10 pop hit, and then the follow-up smash, Funky Cold Medina.
Yep.
Yeah, so
They're great.
He co-wrote those songs with Loc, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And it's just so fascinating because you just went through the early history, and it's like rock, it's like jazz in the early years. It comes from such a different place. It comes from like the urban core, really really in the States, and all of a sudden you got a guy coming out of the Department of Economics who's half British.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally like a strange evolution, slightly like rock and roll that starts like in the most poor part of the South,
True.
and then goes into Britain and just becomes this incredible thing.
And the beauty is that before he even stepped out on his own to have his own top 10 smash Bust a Move, he wrote 2 top 10 smash for somebody else, you know?
Yeah.
So, that song actually won him a Grammy, Bust a Move, for Best Rap Performance, and it's a very strong pop appeal, which is on that album, which went platinum, which is the Stone Cold Rhyming. The follow-up, Principal's Office, was a humorous, everyday high school tale resembling a Chuck Berry plot and climbed to the top 40.
Nice.
So Young later signed with Capitol Records and released an album called Brainstorm. Expanding into message tracks promoting personal responsibility, this album did not fare as well, and by 1993, the audience taste has shifted towards a harder edge hip-hop. So, how many albums did Young MC do? Technically speaking, he did 8. He did Stone Cold Rhyming, Brainstorm, What's the Flavor, Return of the One Hit Wonder, Ain't Going Out Like That, Engage the Enzyme, Adrenaline Flow, and Relentless. So, there was an interview by a gentleman of Carl Pushman on May 31st, 2017. He interviewed Young MC. And he basically went like this. I've just told the 1990s hip-hop hero that New Zealand is unique when it comes to his discography. Around the globe, his biggest hit is Bust a Move, a frantic, funny, and ultra-funky joint about looking for love in all the wrong places. With his entertaining wordplay and smooth delivery, your best friend Harry has a brother Larry in 5 days from now he's going to marry, and its groovy bass line courtesy of Michael Balzeri from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. So Flea did the bass line for Young MC.
Wow.
You see this influence, it just keeps going. And the Chili Peppers only came out in 86.
I know.
So that's not bad. And this song peaked as a global success. Instead, he had a follow-up hit with the piano-driven Principal's Office that broke him here. The song, an amusing Shaggy Dog story about everything going wrong for the rapper one day at school, rocketed up the charts, hitting number 5 and staying there for 5 months. It was huge and it was everywhere. So Young MC quoted, "I don't perform Principal's Office anymore. I hate to say that, but I've just turned 50 years old." So this is back in 2017. He goes, "I was old for that song when I made it," he says. "I haven't performed Principal's Office in about 20 years. The reporter says, "Young MC, saying it ain't so." He goes, "That's the truth. I couldn't be there in my 30s even, let alone my 40s or 50s, trying to perform that song convincingly, just to be totally honest with you." So in other words, he said, listen, I'm older now. How am I supposed to sing this song about high school when I'm like in my 50s?
At least he's honest.
It's a tough one. McCartney still sings "I Saw Her Standing." It's a tough one.
Or she's 16, for God's sake.
17.
17.
And
No.
she was just 17.
Well, that's what it is. I saw her dancing in the song.
That's what it's called?
Yeah, I saw her standing there.
I saw her
okay.
saying, yeah.
I saw her standing there.
So, Young MC also quotes about Bust a Move. Bust a Move, to a great extent, and Stone Cold Rhyming to a smaller extent, were a lot of people's first girlfriend in terms of rap music, he says. I know it holds a special place for a lot of people. I know that As a fact, I've been asked to come out and perform the whole album recently. It's not something I really had any interest in doing, but it was interesting to me because I know people look at other classic albums in hip hop. I never looked at Stone Cold rhyming like that, but there is definitely people who do. So the reporter says, count me as one of those people that, still wants to hear that album. Young MC also says, I grew up in New York City and learned to rhyme in New York, but I went to USC, which is University of Southern California in Los Angeles. And to go to college, he explains, I learned how to rap in New York going to parties because I wasn't old enough to go to clubs. I was 10 or 11 when I started, so going to house parties and block parties with DJs and MCs, I really learned a lot in the terms of rhyming. By the time I got to LA, I was old enough to go to clubs, and the music scene was very accepting of me. In New York, I had to stay in the line. There were a lot of guys who were older than me who were waiting their turn to get their record deals because that's how they did it in New York. In LA, they just went for what was the hot thing at the time and what they felt would move the whole movement of West Coast hip hop forward. I was able to benefit from that greatly. My records came out in the West Coast, but my talent or my skill, my rhyme experience had all come from the East Coast. Now he talks about the crossover artist that he helped out, which was the other rap crossover artist that year was the gruff, raspy voice Tone Loc. His more adult-oriented songs were even bigger than Young MC's, hitting number 1 here with Wild Thing and number 3 with Funky Cold Medina. What a lot of people don't know is that Young MC penned those hits as well. Wild Thing went triple platinum, and then Funky Cold Medina went double platinum, and I'm sitting there with a Bust a Move, and Bust a Move was slower. So I was concerned, he says. People were saying, why didn't you use Wild Thing for yourself? Why didn't you keep Funky Cold Medina for yourself? But those were Tone's records. I wrote for his cadence. The beauty of those records is his voice. His voice is so low that he's beneath the guitars. So, to close off with Young MC,
Yeah.
I'm going to read a quote from Vinyl Me Please and to describe his debut album as such on the re-release of February 22nd, 2022. Stone Cold Rhyming, released on September 5th, 89, contains 13 songs and 0 curse words. The sepia-toned album cover depicts Young in profile, cradling an old broadcast microphone and looking more like Dapper Doo-Wopper than a hip-hop hero. In terms of playing, it's straight. The songs are shocking in their innocence. At the 1990 Grammy Awards, Bust a Move won for Best Rap Performance. It was clear that hip-hop wasn't going back to the New York or nothing mentality, and New York's was real. Grumpy Village voice donned by Robert Christodoulou, designed to give Stone Cold Rhyming a B+ in his letter grade of Consumer Guide. Stone Cold Rhyming still sounds fresh after all these years.
Yeah, classic album.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's what I got.
Thank you, man.
Nice.
What else are we going to talk about?
I don't know. Something that you can scratch.
Oh, hello.
The music at night, it sounds bright on Wheeler's turntable. He shines a light, he keeps his vinyl in sight, and gives you his magnificent review. Now here's a clue we have for you. It's time for Wheeler's Vinyl Review.
So, in the spirit of this show that you so carefully crafted,
Oh, well, thank you. I'm an artiste.
you're an artiste. I thought, seeing what was coming out in terms of reissues, Prince Sign of the Times was a good record to be reviewing on this show. So one of the reasons is actually Sign of the Times is being remastered by Bernie Grundman, which is one of those names you want to see attached to any project where I'm not the biggest fan of remastering, but at least in some cases it does make for an interesting trip.
I prefer Rick Rubin, but whatever.
Well, Rick Rubin doesn't necessarily remaster. Sometimes he'll play he'll play with the stuff, but he is a remaster engineer as well. But anyways, Grundman is basically an artiste of old tapes, and it really shows here. So for those of you who are in a hurry, I'll give you the end product. So performance, I'd say it's a 5 on 5. The sound is really good. It's a 4 out of 5. And this pressing, I'd say, is a 4 out of 5. In terms of quality, I haven't seen news out there like the Nirvana, where a lot of these records come out damaged. All the records that have been coming out of the factories apparently in a really good state. So, for those of you who don't know this about Prince, but I'm sure this is a minority of people, Prince, shall we say, was prolific. How prolific? He's Neil Young on speed prolific.
That's prolific.
That's prolific.
That's prolific.
And like Neil Young, there is a vault, although in Neil Young's case, it's not an actual physical one, whereas in Prince's case, we're not sure it could be a physically...
He had a vault.
He has
Minneapolis.
so it is a physical vault. So Prince's Sign of the Time came out at a time where he was at his peak. He was on everybody's lips at this point. And this album was really bizarre because it came out at a time where he was with a band, then he dissolved the band, then he scrapped the record, that he made at least another full-length record at the same time, and that one never came out. So
Prince has like 300,000 hours of unreleased stuff.
Exactly.
It's terrifying.
This album, to a certain extent, was a miracle that it ever came out. And when it did, it blew the minds of his fans. And so this copy here is filled with, it's like Adore, Housequake, that are in a completely different world than the stuff that came out at the same time. You have other tracks on there, like Hot Thing, It, Slow Love, really interesting stuff. And I have to say, there are certain things on there that I don't particularly like. The electric drums, for example. That hasn't aged necessarily really well, but it's Prince. So it's done in a way that's not too of its time, let's put it that way.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So for those of you who have the original 1990s pressing, is it worth shelling out the hard-earned bucks for this Grundman remastering? I'd say yes, because it's so clean. It's so... How to put this? It goes into directions that you didn't necessarily hear on the original pressings. So it is worth the money if you're a Prince fan. If you're not necessarily well acquainted with Prince, it's maybe not the album to begin with.
Yeah.
So this review is more towards the actual Prince fans out there. So if you don't have it, add it to your collection. If you already have the original pressing, I'd say go for it again. It's really worth it.
Did you say it was a remix or?
It's a remastered.
After he died, or?
I couldn't find the actual timeline. I'm guessing it was after, because he wasn't really that big into remastering, letting somebody else remaster it. So
No.
Himself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think it's posthumous.
Thank you, man. That was cool.
That's good. And for all Prince fans out there who really want to learn about Prince, Purple Rain. Let's just start off with that album there, and the rest will just go.
Yeah, that was a good album. Terrible movie, but
it was a terrible movie.
That one man's impression. Anyway, thank you, man.
It's three man's impression, I think.
So that's it?
That is it.
Well, that's great. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in.
Thank you.
I'm Kennedy, going to be signing off, so I'm out.
Dr. Ian Clark says au revoir.
And Wheeler says adios.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Salut.